Hey everybody, how's it going? Good evening. I'm gonna read you another new poem. This one's really new. Um, it's in the first draft, so it might be really sloppy. It might be I'm not quite sure. It's not there, but I think it's important to share poems really early on in the process, both as a means of self editing. Sometimes when you get it out there in front of people um, or whatnot, you can hear while you're reading it. Oh, I don't need that line. I could have edited that, or oh, I should move that around. But I think it's also really important that um, that we see that process, so we don't think every time we see a finished poem that's being performed or being read or in a book, we're like, oh, it just came out that way, and then we get really stressed. As readers and as writers, when we're working on a poem and it's not coming out right, we see our favorite poets, or we just kind of assume that the work that we love of theirs the most just kind of came out like that. That it didn't take 2 drafts, 10 drafts, 20 drafts. 1 month, 2 months, 3 years. So this poem, this is a new one. This is draft one. I think I like it. I think we're gonna follow this. But yeah, let's take it for a spin. Unbearable little poem for the sky. The night constantly tests its pitch, and it's always off. Something like playing a violin with a saw blade, which is to say, unwriting the composition, snipping off Beethoven's fingers one at a time, while he waves his hands above the keys like a magician, summoning up from a hat a gaunt animal, or this month's rent, and, like all miracles, if we believe them, they happen. The sound rises from the piano. It's amazing, I know, but magicians live the most mundane lives. They have given up on wonder. They can see through themselves, and also mirrors, straitjackets, safes and lakes, telescopes and your lies, the eyes of lovers. The window panes we gazed out of in our youth mean nothing. The magic of the streets below, nothing. Opacity, like objectivism, was devised by kings who cannot see a world in which they do not rule, and cannot hear the music played by the savant with no fingers. His secret: he is ordinary like us. He plays entirely with his pain. If he owns nothing else, he owns this. If the bourgeoisie can take everything down to the fingers, they cannot take that sound as the magician waves his fingerless hands over his body and removes some part of himself. We all find this just lovely, and we pay to see it. And we will gather in concert halls for 1,000 years to hear this pain. If we could have, we would have paid to see Van Gogh cut off his own ear, which he did because he could hear his genius leaving him. When it was done, he gathered a barrel full of conch shells each day and filled a stone chamber with the ears of the sea. If the ocean can be forced into a single room, and if Beethoven can be buried inside a grand piano in Vienna's central cemetery, and if, as ornithologists have come to find, any bird which has ever entered the cemetery has been unable to leave or die, and so for nearly 200 years some thousand birds have formed a kind of orchestra above Beethoven's bones, and the conch shells have begun to shake the stones loose from Van Gogh's castle of pain. Here, with thousand ears, he listens to the dark enter him, the wind scraping him clean, emptying his bones until he weighs the same as a sparrow and flies off to some more bearable fantasy. If we carry some part of heaven inside of us, which, because it is borrowed, we must one day return, then I assure you we can sit here in silence. We can bear that weight, the weight which forces a song from a body, or 1,000 birds to undo time directly above the remains of a dead composer. If the whole of human history compressed into a single moment small as a plum, we can look across the street and see a single boy materialize with a violin in the crook of his neck, his bow sewing the music back together, stitching each digit back into the equation of Beethoven's hand. We can study everything down to the vein. We can mine that vein if it pleases us. We can pull the gold from our own mouths and sow an acre of teeth. 1,000 words could grow and we still wouldn't have the language for this magic. But nonetheless, we can bear it, and we do. I promise you. Van Gogh sings above Beethoven to comfort him in the dark. The miracle is that your pain won't ever leave you. It grows like a seed until you name it. Jesus did not heal himself. He did not metabolize Pilate's spear into an extra rib. His rib split like the rest of ours, like shades, like the clouds Galileo stared through deep into heaven and its lies. He saw just enough to be known as a heretic. I know, it's all so unbearable. The truth, your death, mine, the knives in our backs, the ear cut clean from the skull, the ocean inside of it, the long hum of silence, birds refusing to die.